From humble beginnings, the organic food movement has leapt from the backyard of a small group of ecologically minded farmers to the domain of large multinationals. Welcome to Environment. This week we come to you from the frontier between organic and conventional produce and ask, is biofood the gold standard we're led to believe? Coming up, we start in China, where scientists have genetically modified cows to produce human milk. It's certainly not organic, but does that mean it's not good for us? Next, the biofood industry is thriving in France, but is it here to stay? We assess how organic farming stacks up against conventional methods. And finally, we head to Ecuador, where several hundred banana farmers are fighting big business to keep their produce 100% natural. Rules vary from country to country, but generally organic means no artificial fertilisers, no synthetic chemicals, and certainly no genetically modified organisms. But scientists at China Agricultural University are willing to forego the organic tag. They're developing human milk with genetically modified cattle and insist it's as safe to drink as that from ordinary cows.
These cows may look normal. The man who bred them and pays close attention to them at this Beijing area farm is very proud. A scientific breakthrough makes them different.
This is Xing Hua. She was born in 2004. She's our first transgenically cloned cow.
Xiang Hua and 20 bovines just like her began life as a clone cow cell into which human genes were introduced. They and all their descendants produce a milk that's very close to human milk.
The milk we produce contains the two most important proteins of mother's milk, lysozyme and whey. The percentage of these substances contained in this cow milk is even higher than that in human milk.
Testing will probably take about 10 years before this milk enters the infant formula, beverage and yogurt markets. But Mr. Zhang isn't waiting. Although genetically modified milk doesn't contain maternal antibodies, its proteins will strengthen the immune system of babies who can't be breastfed. So says project leader Professor Li Ning.
Our product is meant for children, elderly people, and people who have chronic circulation or stomach problems. In China, that makes for a market of 200 million people.
It could also solve the problems created by China's contaminated milk scandals. In those cases, breeders artificially increased milk protein levels with chemicals.
Our milk contains more than 4.5 grams of protein per litre, which is far above the average. There is no need for additives like leather protein or concentrated proteins.
Transgenic research on animals is on the rise in China thanks to permissive laws. And despite the high rate of cow deaths, there isn't a lot of opposition. The main concern is the lack of transparency of agricultural product modification.
If they want to sell this milk, they will be forced to market it as humanized milk. This is not the case with other genetically modified products, such as rice. There's no visible difference between genetically modified rice and normal rice. Consumers are therefore deprived of the right to choose.
And those people are more and more suspicious about genetically modified products. While Beijing is close to authorizing the production of transgenic rice, a poll shows 62% of Chinese are against it.
You can be sure these cows are not genetically modified, but they're not organic either. Here in France, farmer Michael Poyon has transformed part of his farm to organic produce. However, he explains why it's becoming increasingly difficult to run a completely organic operation. Michael Poyon's chickens have been certified organic since September last year. Around 15% of his produce has the biofoods tag. But this young French farmer is hesitant to convert the rest of his property. His cows, for example, are not organic. Poultry, it seems, is much easier to transform.
This is the chicken feed I produce myself. It's made with assorted grains, some dried peas. This is something that is very easy to make organic. But growing organic feed for dairy cows is another story. In addition to having to grow on site, I would also need to produce it in larger quantities.
Mikel and his wife manage this 180-hectare farm in the north of France. Celine takes care of the small but efficient organic flour mill. This type of agriculture comes with high costs and sometimes heavy burdens. And while biofoods are in vogue now, they know that may not always be the case.
At the moment there is a demand for organic food, so I respond to that demand. But I don't do it because ideologically it looks good.
In France, biofood sales were more than €3 billion last year. Yet despite backing from the government, only 2.9% of the country's agricultural land has been converted, less than half of the target set for 2012. Controversial journalist Gilles Rivière-Vextine says this type of agriculture is too expensive in France, and he believes the industry will stagnate as more consumers realise they've been misled.
They're convinced that organic agriculture doesn't use pesticides. That's false. Organic agriculture does use pesticides. The only difference is that they're natural. Natural pesticides can be equally dangerous for our health and the environment.
According to Agence Bio, France's organic lobby group, around 90% of consumers eat organic produce because they believe it's either better for their health or the environment. Should this perception change, so too could the longevity of this now very fashionable biofoods trend. From organic onions here in France, we're going to head to large-scale banana plantations in Ecuador. There, many of the smaller farmers favour organic produce, largely because it attracts a higher price. But as one group found out, half the battle is beating the large multinationals, who often contaminate their crop.
Pablo Archibala uses chicken manure as fertilizer. His plantation is entirely organic, a rare quality in Ecuador, where the vast majority of plantations owned by multinational companies are sprayed with chemicals.
I have a problem with my activity. I could grow organic fruit and vegetables in my field, but my neighbor keeps pulverizing his lot with pesticides. He uses a plane, and some of the chemicals land on my leaves.
Every day, planes scatter chemicals over plantations to boost production. Banana farming is the country's second industry, after oil production. 10% of the population makes its living from the banana business, endangering their own health.
People who emigrated down there to work in the business, these people got ill. They came back with diseases, skin problems, had urinary infections.
350 small farmers have found a way of staying far away from these harmful chemicals. They have united and created the country's first organic cooperative. It's located on the mountainside. Farming conditions are definitely tough, but the air is much cleaner.
If I wasn't associated with this cooperative, I wouldn't have had the possibility of selling, exporting, and even getting some of the financial aid that lone producers don't have access to.
Through the cooperative, small producers sell bananas all year long for a steady price of $7 a case, twice as much as they got when they worked for the multinationals. And now these organic producers have their own steady clients.
This type of organic banana is exported to the European market. Its exact destination is Rotterdam.
Small producers hope the organic trend will continue so they can build their own distribution network. Multinationals still hold 85% of the market.
That brings us to the end of Environment this week. Thanks for joining us at this semi-organic farm here in France. We look forward to seeing you next time.